and one of them was the head of the union. We spent an hour getting acquainted, and we were told about the problems which the Department of Education faces in day-to-day in a very practical, real sense. At the end of it, maybe I was indiscreet, and maybe it would sound like I was asking a gotcha question, but I leaned across the table and said, tell me, I know what the scores are on the BGCSE exams, and is anyone teaching math? She looked back at me and said, the teachers are qualified, but they are not comfortable teaching math. That ended the conversation. That ended the meeting. No one was interested in pursuing that question and answer at all, taking any additional time discussing what that really meant. That's all the evidence I have. Now, therefore, I come to the conclusion that educational reform in the Bahamas is a monumental task. It's a monumental task anywhere. It's a monumental task in the United States. And one can only go through the literature on the No Child Left Behind Act and how it's working out to know that the sheer monumental size of the reform that's required. The question is, where do we start? We have to start somewhere. The question is, where do we start? What I'm going to do is discuss one institutional aspect and three specific suggestions of places that one can start. I will not, in the main presentation, I will not discuss two subjects that are very, very important, and that is charter schools and the use of vouchers. These are important things, but I'm going to concentrate on one institutional comment, and that is to observe that the political objectives of every politician has a future of the time. The most important thing in every politician's future is the next election. So that's the time horizon on which a politician works. He's interested in his own election and in the continued power of his political power, and the natural tendency to favor special interests. And what children learn, actually learn in school, there is no special interest pushing that special interest. Now, some of the benefits of education reform may appear within 3 years, but most appear over a much longer term. And what we're talking about is you have to have an aggressive campaign of education reform that stretches out 15 or 20 years. In a period of 15 or 20 years, one of the effects that is forecasted or expected is, according to some economists and some from very authoritative sources, that an aggressive program of education reform that would cover a 15 to 20 year period could result in the gross domestic product per capita being 36% higher than it would be without such a program. Now, the problem with education reform is that the resistance starts immediately, and the resistance comes from unions, parents, and teachers. The first step, however, and this is just the first step, should be to separate the Department of Education and into a separate corporation, to create some political distance between Parliament on a day-to-day basis and the school system. What you have to, the school system has to have authority to pursue its ends, which is the human capital of the country. The first agent of change is a baby college. You say, what on earth is a baby college? It's proposed that the Bahamas create a baby college patterned after the Harlem Children's Zone in New York City, the baby college of the Harlem Children's Zone. And the Harlem Children's Zone in Harlem consists of initially 24 blocks of the heart of Harlem. And one of the things was created there was the baby college. Now, what does the baby college do? It actively goes out, door to door, it goes to the hospitals, and it approaches young pregnant women and convinces them to take a 9-week course in childbearing and development. That's its objective. One of the things, they discuss all sorts of things that relate to health and mothering. With regard to education, they have one standard thing that is drummed into all students in the system, is you should redo them and not whack them. Redo them, don't whack them. The whole baby college is based, its programs are based on a conclusion. And that conclusion is that without significant interventions, disparities in cognitive advantages at the very early stages of development occur. And this often leads to ever-widening differences in educational achievements as children grow older. And this is what happens to underprivileged children, is they miss the big growth opportunities to increase their cognitive skills, their knowledge, because they are not in a nurturing environment at the time in which these spurts take place. This is a theory of the Harvard, the doctor from the Harvard Medical School who designed the program, and that is that you have these spurts of growth, and if there isn't a friendly, supportive atmosphere for the child to be nourished in, they don't get nourished. Second program that I think should be expanded is an existing program of the Department of Education. And that's Program SURE, which is the alternate education program of the Department of Education. It's an existing program, and it's designed to retrieve male students that are about to drop out of school. They have 2 campuses, one on Gladstone Road and one in Grand Bahama. And they have a capacity for 40 male students. And all of them are picked and referred to them as the type of person who is likely to drop out of school. And what the program is, it's a 4.5-month program, and it concentrates on functional literacy, vocational training, athletics, and counseling. Now, I've looked at the program. I happen to have been a former volunteer social worker at Covenant House in New York in the early 80s. And it appeared to me that Program SURE had the success rate that was roughly equivalent to what was experienced at Covenant House, at that time, Covenant House, at Midtown Manhattan, 10th Street, right in the heart of the worst part of Manhattan. It appears that they had a success ratio that was roughly comparable to Covenant House. But they appeared to me that they were undernourished. Here you have a school, all-male school, and what does a male teacher get from undertaking this type of teaching? He gets a premium. It's a gigantic premium. It's $300 per year. That's the incentive, the monetary incentive to teach in this environment. The program is designed to have 2 counselors per every 40 students. They've never had 2 counselors. At times they don't even have a single counselor. But this program should be evaluated with the possibility of expansion. And it irks me no end to hear a politician get up and say, we need a boot camp in Ambrose. That's what we need. When you've got a program in the Department of Education that is, from the point of view of design and intention, is a success. But it needs to be evaluated, and it needs to be reconstituted and expanded, I think. The third element in this that we propose to start, some place to start, a concrete place to start, and that is a laboratory school. Now, the Coalition for Education Reform in July of 2005, when asked by the Minister of Education to come up with ideas for